The standard of budget-friendly mobile phones is increasing all the time. Today's more affordable mid-range phones are easily equivalent to the flagship devices of only a couple of years ago. And the competition in this area is really heating up. There are lots of devices at sub $300 and some even as low as $200. Now, one company that's been making a lot of waves in this space is ZTE. Recently, Lan reviewed the ZTE Blade S6, and now ZTE has released a bigger version of the same phone, the ZTE Blade S6 Plus. With a 5.5-inch display and the same internals as the Blade S6, this phone has lots to offer. So let's have a look at it. Like the ZTE Blade S6, it's quite obvious what has inspired the design of the S6 Plus. From its grey coloured body, rounded corners, circular home button and even the naming convention, the Blade S6 Plus borrows heavily from Apple's design language. Of course, while it looks similar to the iPhone 6 Plus, it actually feels quite different. The entire body of the Blade S6 Plus is made of plastic, and while plastic doesn't necessarily have to feel cheap, unfortunately it could be said of the Blade S6 Plus that it lacks a premium feel. For example, the plastic is coated in a smooth satin finish and it tends to slip around in the hand quite a lot. Although I didn't drop the phone during my few days that I was using it as my daily driver, I could see that it could be a worry for some. Although overall the Blade S6 Plus looks like the Blade S6, there is one big difference in its construction. The Blade S6 is a sealed unit that uses trays for both the SIM card and the microSD card. But the S6 Plus is different. The back is removable and the cards are inserted in a more traditional fashion. However, the battery still remains non-removable. Lan's Blade S6 had an issue with too much movement in its back cover and as a result a general hollow feel to it. But because of its different cover construction, I didn't see anything like that with the Blade S6 Plus. Since the ZTE Blade S6 Plus has a 5.5-inch display, it's quite a big device. This isn't helped much by the large space at the bottom for the capacitive keys. Although we're only talking about a couple of millimeters, it just seemed oversized to me. But on the positive side, the device is fairly thin at under 8mm, which when combined with the rounded corners means that the phone is easy to hold. However, one-handed use, for me at least, is out of the question. Going around the device, the power button and the volume rocker are located on the right-hand side and can be easily reached. The headphone jack is on the top, along with the IR blaster, while on the bottom is the micro USB. The ZTE S6 Plus utilises capacitive keys up front, and they do have an appealing, unique look to them. The home button in the centre is denoted by a ring that glows a nice bright blue when you touch it, or when you have notifications, or when the device is charging. Two LEDs flank the home button to represent the back and menu keys. By default, the back button is on the left and the menu key is on the right, but that can be changed in the settings and you can flip them the other way around if you prefer. The ZTE S6 Plus comes with a 5.5-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p. This results in a pixel density of 267 ppi. Considering the size of the display, this resolution may seem a little low to some, but my experience with the screen was very good, with everything including videos and games looking great. The display brings with it all the loved features of an IPS LCD panel, including bright but not overly saturated colours, great brightness and good viewing angles. If I had to complain about one thing, it would be to mention that the brightness level set by the phone when using auto brightness was just a little too high for me. I found myself adjusting the brightness manually to compensate. Under the hood, the Blade S6 Plus packs an octa-core 64-bit Qualcomm Snapdragon 615 processor clocked at 1.5 GHz. It's backed by an Adreno 405 GPU and 2GB of RAM. This is one of the best mid-range processing packages currently available, and for everyday tasks gives a performance that is similar to its more high-end counterparts. The Blade S6 Plus is snappy, responsive and fast. Animations run smoothly every time, apps open quickly and multitasking is a breeze. The gaming experience is also great, with the device handling graphic-intensive games very well. The device comes with 16GB of onboard storage, which is further expandable by an additional 32GB using a microSD card. However, the storage comes partitioned. The 16GB is divided up into a system area of 4.29GB, a user area of 3.87GB, which is used for installing apps, and a phone storage area of 7.83GB, which is used for data and media. There is an option to move apps from the user area to the phone storage. Unfortunately, there is no option to move apps from either the user storage or the phone storage to the SD card. You are, however, able to set the default write location to the external SD card. However, this seems to be a bit hit and miss in terms of which apps respect or understand this setting. Also, the camera app has a separate setting for where the images should be stored, but it can be set to use the external SD card. A single speaker is found on the back at the bottom right corner, and while it does get the job done, it obviously doesn't provide as good an experience as you would get from, say, a phone with front-facing speakers. A standard set of sensors and connectivity options are available, including support for 4G LTE, but it's worth noting that since this device is catered towards the Asian and European markets, it won't connect to the LTE networks in the US. The ZTE Blade S6 Plus has a 3000 mAh battery, and it does a pretty good job. The best I got out of it during my testing was 36 hours of off-charger time with an on-screen time of 3.5 hours. There's also a battery saver mode provided in case you need to get some extra juice out of that battery when it's running low but you're away from a charger. I also did some individual app testing, and according to GameBench, YouTube will stream video over Wi-Fi for about 6 hours on one charge, whereas Epic Citadel will run for about 3 hours before the battery is fully consumed. The camera on the smaller Blade S6 is quite impressive, and happily the Blade S6 Plus uses the same technology. What you're looking at is a 13 megapixel Sony made sensor with a 28mm wide angle lens. When you jump into the camera interface, you're going to notice two modes, Simple and Expert. Simple is basically just an auto mode that lets you snap photos without having to worry or play around with any additional settings. On the other hand, Expert mode introduces a few additional controls like white balance, ISO metering and exposure, but that's about as extensive as it gets. Various shooting modes like HDR, Panorama and a few others are also available, but one thing to note is they're only accessible when you're shooting in simple mode. The pictures are sharp and vibrant in colour, but not overly so as to make them look unrealistic, and in most situations where lighting was adequate I was able to pretty much get any shot I wanted. The f2.0 aperture is also great, and you can create pictures with a shallow depth of field quite easily, something you would normally only achieve with a DSLR. In low light, performance can be a bit hit and miss with high noise levels, but with a steady hand you can get reasonable results. However, don't expect too much as the camera has a maximum ISO of 800. Overall, the rear camera is a pretty solid offering, and it's certainly one of the plus points of this phone. If you're a selfie lover, you're going to enjoy the front-facing camera, as it comes in at 5 megapixels. The quality isn't spectacular by any means, but just like the rear camera, it has a wide-angle lens, which means you can easily fit you and a couple of friends into a single shot. With Android 5.0 Lollipop out of the box, the ZTE Blade S6 Plus is one of the few phones that runs the latest iteration of Google's operating system. You get all of the great features of Lollipop, plus a few additions from ZTE, including a custom launcher. While the custom launcher does have its own unique features, a lot of the stock elements of Android 5.0 are available here. Things like the lock screen notification shade, overview, settings, dialer and clock all still preserve the material design from Google. Like the software experience we get from many devices from China, the custom launcher is colourful with squared icons and does away with the standard app drawer in favour of having all the applications reside on the home screen. However, with folders you should be able to stop things from getting too cluttered. Of course, this is still Android, so you always have the option to download a third-party launcher from the Google Play Store if you're looking for a more familiar experience. Tapping the menu button or swiping up from the bottom of the screen brings up the launcher customization panel. Here you can choose from a series of solid coloured or abstract wallpapers, or even download new ones from ZTE's online library. There is also a built-in slider which gives your wallpapers a blurred look, plus you can also alter the desktop transitions. Once you're satisfied with all your changes that you've made, you can create a backup copy within the launcher preferences so that you never lose them. ZTE has also included the option of a navigation helper called Me Pop. It's an on-screen bubble with navigation keys to help with one-handed operation. Since the screen on the S6 Plus is quite large, this could be a very handy feature for some. And so there you have it, the ZTE Blade S6 Plus. What you're getting is a smartphone with a large display, a great processor package and a solid camera experience. It's available globally right now for a special launch price of $270. Later on, its recommended retail price will be $299. For those in Europe and in Asia, it's definitely worth considering if you want a wallet-friendly smartphone with a 5.5-inch display. My name's Gary Sims from Android Authority. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to use the comments below to tell me what you think about the ZTE Blade S6 Plus. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Android Authority's YouTube channel, and as for me, I'll see you in my next video. ZTE. ZTE. Nah, it's definitely ZTE.